Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee on Friday the 22nd. I know it's the 22nd, it's my wedding anniversary. I haven't actually got an agenda before me, but if I could ask the town clerk, Pete there, to talk me through the actual agenda, we'll get the meeting started. I think we're going to ask as our first speaker, when we get to it, Richard Slater, then Councillor James Barber, and finally the town clerk is going to read out a statement from a town councillor, Finn. Okay, town clerk, can you go ahead?
We're going to start first with item 1, which is apologies for absence, and there are none. And then item 2, Chair, would be declarations of interest.
Are there any declarations of interest? Harriet, have you got a hand up? Oh no, you put it down. Right. Okay, thank you. No declarations of interest. Thank you.
Then we enter into the public speaking session, Chair, and we will start with Mr. Richard Slater, and I will unmute him now. Mr. Slater.
Mr. Slater, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. I'd like to raise some points regarding the planning application 3098M. Firstly, we noticed that this is a new application, and on the outline planning permission for 174277M, which was the strategic planning site, the chair requested and noted that all further applications should go back before the strategic planning board. So can I ask that it's called in? So that's point 1. Again, on this application, since it was given out planning permission in September 2018, the Education Department had a crisis meeting in January 2019 about lack of places for high schools in Macclesfield. They estimated by 2024 there'd be 392 places short. We've recently seen applications for emergency classrooms at a number of their schools in Macclesfield, and clearly somebody in the Education Department needs a new calculator. Condition 6 of the outline planning permission for 174277 was prior to any of the occupations of any of the strategic sites on Chelford Road, that highway improvements are made at Broken Cross roundabout. As yet, the developers, none of the developers have come forward with a plan, and when the original calculations were done for the outline planning permission, they didn't include the Tesco Express store at Broken Cross, and they were calculated on the day when Fallybroom was only at 50% occupancy. Nextly, Cheshire East have got a 7-year supply of housing, so this new application is not required. We don't need these houses. And it's interesting to note that in correspondence with Henbury Parish Council, the developer are pleading poverty and saying they can't afford to build 3097 unless they get the application for 3098 through. They haven't bought it, so if you can't afford it, don't buy it. And then a strong point is that the application will take the number of dwellings on the local plan allocation to well over the 150, which Mr. Pratt, the inspector, insisted on. So again, overdevelopment in the and we've also still waiting for a planning application for one of the unclaimed patches in the northeast of this local plan site. On layout, the houses backing onto Worley Road or facing Worley Road are not in keeping with the design. All the houses on Worley Road face the road. These would be facing, the backs would be facing the road, so not in keeping. And also it's interesting to note they can't be rotated because the local plan states that no development access is available from Worley Road. So that's that one. The sites, the majority of the houses on this application are within the Cheshire East Red Flood Zone map. And finally, the development is 500 metres from an air quality management area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slater. I'd like to take all three speakers and then we'll move on from there rather than take questions there. When we actually get to this planning application, I would like, if possible, to keep it nice and clear for everyone. And that is, we will take each subject for the planning application separately. So we will speak, for instance, about Pete and about the schools and so on. But if we can keep it fairly orderly, this is a very contentious planning application, and I would like to keep it very, very clear. We've got a lot of people probably watching on YouTube and so on. Okay, may I ask, please, Councillor James Barber to speak, please. Pete, can you unmute him?
Yeah, I have unmuted, but we're having a bit of a weak internet signal at the minute. I don't know if James has muted himself and can maybe unmute himself.
Can we go on to Finn's statement then, please?
Yeah, we'll move on to Finn.
I'll come back to you, James.
Received a statement from Councillor Finn Shenton, who's Maxwell Town Council ward member for Broken Cross and Upton. And I am asked to read out that statement, which starts, "Good morning, everyone. I thank the chair for allowing me to have this prepared statement read out by the town clerk. I'm strongly opposed to the proposed erection of 23 dwellings on the land between Chelford Road and Worley Road. When combined with planning proposal 193097M and the approved application 180294M, the total number of dwellings far exceeds that of the 150 dwellings proposed in the local plan." It goes on for 4 points here. Point 1, there are environmental concerns, particularly surrounding the issue of air quality. With public transport provision already being inadequate, residents of the new dwellings would be forced to jump in their cars when travelling into the town centre, travelling along the A537. This would only compound the congestion problems at Broken Cross, as well as making it potentially hazardous for cyclists and pedestrians, especially given the ongoing issues with speeding down Chelford Road. Given that Broken Cross is an air quality management area, it would be irresponsible to compound the problem further with the increased levels of traffic that the proposal will inevitably lead to. The area is also prone to flooding, being situated in a Cheshire East red flood zone. Developers only have to look at the pictures attached by residents of Worley Road on the portal for 193098M to know that residents regularly face damage from flooding in the winter. The current risk of flooding can already be observed as surface water runs along Chelford Road and Worley Road as the drainage system cannot cope. This issue would only be exacerbated by such a development. 3, there has been no consideration at all regarding primary and secondary school places. Pressure for places has been high for some time now. The closest secondary, the Fallabroom Academy. In January 2019, a Cheshire East members briefing found that secondary school places are already at maximum, with Macclesfield secondary education short 392 places. A similar shortage has been concluded for primary school places. Loss of habitat is point 4. The boggy nature of the site and the existence of a large pond has meant that the area has become rich in biodiversity. Geese and ducks overwinter in this area and it is a home to barn owls, tawny owls, kestrels, as well as bats. The presence of the great crested newt on an adjoining pond must also be considered. The development of the site will destroy yet another rich wildlife habitat and will make Macclesfield poorer for it. I thank the committee for listening to this statement. I hope you see fit to object to the application. Councillor Barber has rejoined us and I hope we'll be able to be unmuted. Is that okay, Chair?
Could I just ask Mr. Slater if he could go off video? It might improve the bandwidth. Would you mind, Mr. Slater? Does it help?
I'll tell you what, we'll do that,
No,
we'll do that
okay,
anyway.
let's move on to Councillor Barber, please.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. So I'm mostly going to repeat a lot of the points that have already been said, but I'm here to object to the development today for the following reasons. The so-called Chelford Road development is deeply flawed, and I know that following previous objections from this committee, the majority of you agree. Firstly, this application obviously takes the number of houses over the local plan proposal for the site, which was originally 150 houses, and 3097 and 3098 combined now lie at 157, with 18-0294 taken into account. The total number of houses in development will far exceed the 150 in the original local plan. Secondly, as has already been stated, there are simply not enough school places to cope with the increased amount of children that will inevitably come from this development. And furthermore, it's a completely unsustainable development in terms of the highways infrastructure, with Chelford Road and Brogan Cross obviously being parked up at rush hour most days. It's gridlocked, and with the addition of hundreds of new houses, it's just going to be even worse, and it will cause worse and unmanageable congestion. Furthermore, it'll see the wholesale destruction of wildlife habitats and greenbelt land, which, with Cheshire East having declared a climate emergency, is completely unacceptable. And to add to this, there'll be the loss of extensive peat bog, which is vital to carbon sequestration, and therefore this application will have a negative impact on our fight against global warming. It's also situated very close to the Brogan Cross Air Quality Management Area, and the houses themselves will be situated in Cheshire East red flood zone. And linking back to the infrastructure, there is not enough hospital beds or GPs, for example, to cope with the increased number of people that will come. Finally, Macclesfield does not need more unaffordable houses. It needs houses for those who are struggling to get onto the housing ladder. It needs houses for young people. It needs affordable housing so that everyone can claim what should be their right, which is to have a roof over their heads. The development quite simply does not meet the needs of Macclesfield nor Cheshire East. And I hope that you will see this application should be objected to for the reasons I've stated. It is an unsustainable development that will cause everlasting damage to our town and our communities. And I'm immensely grateful to the local residents, along with Henbury Parish Council and Save Macclesfield Greenbelt, for their dedication to fighting this development. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barber. That concludes the three speakers.
Chair, if I may interrupt.
Yes.
Due to the stilted video, I think it's important that when that item is discussed, or any items, we go member to member, because I don't think we can see an indication of hands on screen. And that way, at least we can see if members have comments to go. And then when it comes to votes, go to each member individually to get their votes clarified.
Could I just ask that now, if Mr. Slater and Councillor Barber have spoken, whether they can remove their video, and it might improve the quality of the connection, the bandwidth. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's just see if that's improved it. I'm all right. Should we move on? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. You reconvene the meeting, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 1st of May 2020. Do I have a proposer to accept the minutes? Thank you.
Hard to see,
Jackson. Yeah, that's all right. I can see her. And a seconder. Is that you, Councillor Wilson? Do you wish to speak, Councillor Wilson? Oh, no, she's agreeing to it. She's seconding it. Okay, thank you very much. And item 4, matters arising from the minutes. Does anybody wish to speak about the actual minutes? Thank you. Anyone? No. Right, well, we accept the minutes as read and approved. Right, we move to item 5, observations on planning applications. I'm not going to read out all of the bump underneath, but it's application 19/3098M, which is the Chelford Road development. Right, as I say, I'd like, if possible, to take it in sections rather than sort of hop around. So Councillor Wilson, would you like to lead, please?
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. I think the first point I would like to make is that it's we've already put down our objections to this planning application back at our meeting on the 19th of July. And I think that the first thing I would like to propose is that we restate all the objections that we made then, they are all still very relevant. Those objections are contained in the minutes of our last meeting on page 5, because they are the same objections we made to the application 193097M. I'm sure we've all got the minutes in front of us, but would you like me to read them out, Deputy Chair, or?
I think it would be helpful for the people actually watching on YouTube and so on, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Okay, so the objections from the 19th of July were that the site was within close proximity of the Broughton Cross Air Quality Management Area, and the development will lead to increased traffic volumes and therefore further exacerbate the poor air quality of that air quality management area, contrary to the Cheshire East Air Quality Management Strategy. 2, lack of cycle and pedestrian routes within the development and between the development and the town centre, contrary to the LPS policy SC3. 3, increase of traffic on already congested highways with particular pressure on the development's access and egress junction. 4, increased pressure on public services, e.g. buses, that have already been subject to cuts. 5, high density of housing in the development, reducing the availability of open spaces to support health and well-being, contrary to the LPS policy SC3. 6, the density of the development is in excess of the site allocation within the Cheshire East Local Plan LPS 18, which indicates 150 houses for the entire site, whilst this partial development of the site indicates 250 residences will be delivered at this development density. 7, increased pressure on primary care facilities. 8, increased pressure on the availability of primary school places. 9, lack of evidence that there is capacity in local secondary schools, and I'd like to return to that point in more detail. Removal of trees and hedges that will result in the loss of wildlife habitat. 11, concerns on the risk of flooding in the development area once the hard standing has been completed. And 12, the application does not clearly meet the local plan policy requirements of LPS 18.1, 2, 3 and 5. I'd also like to add some additional points regarding lack of pedestrian paths and cycleways, increased congestion on already congested roads, the removal of mature woodland and hedgerows, the risk of flooding in the area following the development, and the removal of peat from the site, which I think also requires further discussion. I think the education provision and the peat extraction are 2 points we might want to discuss in more detail. Do you want to take those 2 points separately, Deputy Chair, about the peat and the education?
Well, I bow to your greater experience, Councillor Wilson. I wonder if it's best if we take it in the order that we have written down in front of us. So, in other words, we speak about the air quality first, about the cycle and pedestrian routes, and then we take questions as we go along, and comments and so on. And then we've got a sort of structured argument, haven't we? So yes, shall we start on the air quality? Would you like to lead on that, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, okay. I think that the number of points about air quality have already been made on this application and the other application, which is next door in terms of proximity. I think the air quality issues are very serious. The traffic congestion is very serious. And we as a town council have declared a climate emergency. And in fact, we are concentrating a lot of our resources on rebuilding the forest for the future to assist with air quality management, etc. And so I think our policy as a council in terms of the environmental emergency would suggest that we absolutely have to object to these proposals on the basis of air quality management.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Jackson, please.
Yes, it is a really massive issue around Broughton Cross, the air quality. And as has been stated, it's many times during the day, it just ends up being a car park around that area with cars churning out fumes. And one would hope now, after what we've been experiencing just lately, that we could try now, this is the opportunity to try and make some changes there through planning applications where we can influence it, all the better. So I'm fully behind that point, and I did all the others that we've stated as well. And you know, I will be confirming my support on all those as we go through the meeting.
Okay, Would Councillor Ailiff like to speak, please? We can't see you, Councillor Ailiff, but Councillor Harewood, would you like to comment on this at this stage?
We can't unmute Councillor Harewood. It seems she's muted at her end. So if she can unmute herself, then that would help.
Okay, I'll come to Councillor Wilson then next, please.
Thank you. The next point that I think we need to discuss is about the peat extraction. We had a detailed discussion about this.
Sorry, could I just hold you?
Yeah.
Sorry, could we just finish off about the air quality, and then we'll move on, okay? I've got a comment. I've got a comment here, if I might just read to you. In their application documents, Bellway have stated an air quality screening assessment was undertaken in accordance with IAQM and EPUK guidance to determine the requirement for a detailed road traffic emissions impacts assessment. The trip generation for the proposed additional 23 residential units was compared to the criteria detailed in the guidance. The proposed development did not exceed any of the stage 2 criteria. Therefore, the impact was considered to be insignificant in accordance with IAQM and EPUK guidance. A detailed road traffic emissions impact assessment was therefore not undertaken. I don't know if that clarifies that at all for anybody. Right. Do we have any other speakers, please, on air quality? No? Right. Can we move on to the lack of cycle and pedestrian routes then? I think Councillor Wilson, you wish to speak on that.
Yes, I think we discussed this in quite a lot of detail at our last meeting. We are facing considerable challenges now in moving around and getting to work and getting to school with the COVID crisis. And we are looking, as Cheshire East Council and Macclesfield Town Council are looking at a cycling strategy and a moving around strategy that we've been asked to look at as councillors to enable people to get to the walk and cycle more easily. And therefore, I think the fact this application doesn't have sufficient in place for cycling and transport strategy, I think that's another reason to object to it.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers on that item? No? Can we hear from Councillor Harewood at all? Please?
Try.
No?
You're not able to unmute it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right. Item 3 then, in increase of traffic on the highways and so on. Do we have any speakers on that, please? Councillor Jackson, please.
Yes, I think this is a really contentious part of this application, particularly how it links to the surrounding network leading into Broughton Cross. Knowing the history of that area with highways, it originally, many years ago, had traffic lights, and they were changed to a roundabout to help with the flow of traffic. And it's been proved that roundabouts are much better than traffic lights for controlling traffic and enabling flow. And now for the suggestion that it's going to go, we're going to reverse back to traffic lights in that area, it is certainly one of the issues. I'm really against that. Yeah. And just the impact of the extra traffic in that area is just a step too far as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Wilson? Oh, you've spoken. Councillor Roberts, yes, thank you. Can we unmute Councillor?
You've muted yourself there, Lloyd. You have to unmute yourself.
That's it. Okay, speak.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Don't want to repeat what other people have said. We all know the problems, but that junction at Broken Cross already is a nightmare, as we know. It's how people haven't been severely injured. There's going to be an accident there one of these days with the Tesco's development. That's the main route in and out of Macclesfield, and this is just going to further compound what everybody knows, that it's going to cause problems, bigger and far-reaching than we could imagine on that stretch of road. The pressure on the services, as we know, is immense. Like I said, I don't want to repeat what everybody's saying. We all know the hospitals, the schools, they're all oversubscribed, and the bus routes, they've already been cut. So that's going to be not as helpful as what they can't justify that coming from that angle, because the buses have already been cut. And it's just, I find it incredible that the study for the Broughton Cross roundabout has not been finalised when we're passing developments that are going to impact on that exact location without sorting the Broughton Cross element first. And I will be voting against it. I just find it incredible. They just seem to do this all over the place, and it's very frustrating. So that's what I'd like to say on the highways and the air quality.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roberts. I'd just like to add that I do have somewhere in this enormous file of mine an email from David Malcolm, the planning officer, saying when in reply to what Richard Slater wrote, commenting that they haven't done a detailed survey of the roundabout because the developers want to save money, and until the application is heard, they don't want to go to the expense. I might be wrong, but that's what, as I interpret it. Anybody, any other speakers on that item number 3? Okay. Item number 4 about public services, about the buses and so on. Can I have any speakers on that, please? No speakers. Yes, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I think to be fair, I think the Councillor Roberts has covered in detail about the public transport services, and we discussed this at our last meeting. The removal of the 130 service and other bus services around there is going to make traffic congestion even worse. So some of the points in our list are either factual or we've already covered them in other contributions.
Well, I think since then I've heard on the grapevine that we just don't know which bus companies are going to be operating where, whether they're going to be in business at all, anything about public bus services after the lockdown. We just don't know what's going to happen. Okay, should we move on from that? Councillor Jackson, you wishing to speak? You took a deep breath there. Right. The density of housing in the development, well-being. Any comments about the density of housing? No, it's all yes. Councillor Wilson.
I think this is just a factual point, Deputy Chair, that the actual development total, the two together, exceed the 150 houses provided for in the local plan, and with around 100 the other developments nearby, there's going to be too high a housing density. I think it's a factual observation.
Yeah, fair comment. Just really that, as I understand it, I've come into this party a bit late, but the reason they're putting in for these extra houses is that they think that they need it to increase their income, their profit or whatever. And I understand also they don't actually own the land yet, but I might be wrong with that. Item 6, this is about the density and so on, so we're handling that. Anybody else got a comment on that? Councillor Jackson? No? No? Item 7, primary care facilities, increased primary care facilities. Can I have any speakers on that, please? Yes, Councillor Jackson.
Yes, again, you know, there'll be a shortfall in GP, in the GP services and in the hospital provision. We know that the impact on the local health service, and particularly at this time, although we shouldn't necessarily take that into consideration on a planning application, but it's an added pressure that our health services could do without. And I just believe that the local GPs and hospital are already oversubscribed and will find it difficult to cope, particularly when the number of houses is way beyond what was allocated in the local plan. You know, numbers aren't just dreamt up. Numbers are there because of pressure from, obviously, from central government, but also for where we think, or the council thinks, that piece of land can sustain. And this is going way beyond that. And it has then an impact on all local services and schools, as we will be obviously speaking about that probably in the next item.
Fine, thank you. I just want to comment that we talk, and we'll be talking in a minute about the schools and so on, but if you want to get to the doctor's surgery, you still have to go through the roundabout at Broken Cross, whether it's on a bus or car, on a bicycle, whatever. There's no other way. It's like a sort of funnel to get into the town. Are there any other speakers on this primary care facilities? No, thank you. Right, number 8, isn't it? Increased pressure on availability of primary school places. Do we, A-lift, Councillor Harewood, would you like to speak on this? Can we hear Councillor Harewood?
I've put in multiple requests for her to unmute, but it's not getting us anywhere. There's obviously a failure in the link there, I'm afraid. Okay,
anybody else like to speak about primary school places? Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Yes, well, again, you know, the pressure on the primary schools, we already know there's going to be a shortfall with this demand for these houses, and the primary schools are under such pressure now. They're having to reduce their class sizes by half for the social distancing. I know, again, hopefully this won't go on for too long, but it's certainly something we have to consider. And as we know, they're coming to the council asking for extra space, needing extra classrooms, needing to reassess how they work around their schools. And so we've got enough pressure, existing pressure on our primary schools, and this will be too much. And I don't think, well, I won't be supporting this application.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Could I ask, can we speak to Councillor Harewood yet? I saw her a second ago. I know how strongly she feels about the availability of places at Broken Cross and St John's, I think, isn't it?
Again, sent prompts to ask her to unmute. But
do I have any other speakers on the primary? No? Okay, we'll move on then. Lack of evidence that there is capacity in local secondary schools. Now, right, can I have speakers on this, please? Any speakers, please? Councillor Wilson, thank you.
Yes, I think that this is something where we do have quite clear evidence from Cheshire East that there is going to be a shortfall of 392 places by 2024. I think originally when this planning application, the partner planning application went to full decision, there was viewed at that time that there were going to be sufficient secondary school places, but that is clearly not the case. And a number of our two public speakers, and as the person Finn who sent in, Councillor Shenton who sent in his statement, have all confirmed in the public domain now is a figure quoted is 392 places short by 2024. So I think this is a really, really key issue, along with primary school places and also health services. But there just aren't the secondary school places available to support additional secondary school students, particularly in the current situation regarding the coronavirus. And we know as a planning committee, we've had applications from local schools, both primary and secondary, for temporary classrooms to cope with additional pupils. So there just isn't the capacity, and that's been confirmed by Cheshire East. And so that is a very important reason why we should object to this planning application.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers on that, please? Councillor Roberts, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's not been raised, and I don't know if it's a viable point, but we don't yet know. We know the impacts of coronavirus. It's going to be massive, and the capacity for children to go to school is going to be very limited. But we don't know yet is what impact the opening of the new King's School will have on the surrounding secondary schools. I don't know if a study's been done or canvassed the pupils, but I'm pretty sure, and I know one or two people myself who are going to take the children out of the school because the fees are going to go up, and they're going to look for alternatives, and we don't know the impact of that on the surrounding schools either. So it's just another negative. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Jackson, please.
Yes, just for information, at present I'm an ex officio governor at King's School, and I'm aware that they are actually even allowing for some pupils being deciding to go elsewhere, that they are well oversubscribed. So it does mean that there's quite a bit of capacity there, which will then fall back on the local authority schooling. So that's just an extra piece of information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. Anybody else wish to speak on that? Right, can I just read for clarity? I have an email before me from the Director of Education, Jackie Forster, and it says, this is concerning the extra places and so on. The planning application that has been submitted for additional accommodation at Tidrington High School is a result of discussions with all 4 Macclesfield High Schools to address the future need for additional places in the area. These plans will provide a temporary solution until a longer term plan is agreed. And then another paragraph, the Cheshire East reassesses its pupil places forecasts annually in line with the latest information on housing provided by the planning department. The 2008 forecasts indicated surplus places across Macclesfield secondary schools for January 2019. The figure quoted of 392 places short referred to the anticipated position by 2024 if the current trend continued. The current need for places reflects the updated forecast position. Thank you. Can anybody, we still can't speak to Councillor Harewood? No? No? Right, I think we'll have to move on, I'm afraid. Anybody else wish to speak after that comment of mine? No? Yeah, we're moving on to item number 10, removal of trees and hedges that will result in the loss of wildlife habitat. Can I have any speakers on that? Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I think we've covered this point already partially in terms of our declaring of a climate emergency and also our policy to create a forest for the future that we're making good progress with. So I think our council's policy is to plant more trees rather than cut them down.
Yes, we have spoken about this before. Anybody, any other speakers on that? Thank you. Anybody? Yeah, it still sticks in my craw about that local residents and school children and so on planted about 150 trees, wasn't it? And originally I understand that there were plans to keep those trees, and now they're talking about replanting 20 something trees in the whole area and decimating that area that was planted by the school children and local residents. Anyway, any other comments on that?
Chair.
Yes.
Chair, Councillor Roberts indicated.
Oh, I do beg your pardon. Councillor Roberts, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to really agree with what Councillor Wilson said, we should be planting more trees.
Yeah.
We're well aware. But going back to the, I know it may come in the landscape architect as recent as last week dismissed the layout for this application as, and I quote, a very poor urban solution. And that takes me back to the previous planning meeting when I spoke about the leftover from these developments, and it's something we should keep an eye on. And I fear for this development if it gets accepted as well. So it's just something to keep an eye on for the people who will live in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any other speakers now on that? Okay, we'll move on to item 11 about the flooding, and I'd also like to include the peat extraction as well in that with the flooding. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Okay, so I think our public speakers have covered the issue of flooding, and one of the issues, the issue that then leads to is the removal of peat. And we've had a discussion about this at a previous meeting and taken the view that this application must be in line with the National Planning Policy and Cheshire East Council policy on peat removal. Peat cannot be removed from the site. The developer has to deal with this actually on the site itself. The peat cannot be removed or sold. Peat can be dug up, but it can't be taken away from the site. And if houses are to be built on top of peat, they have to be rafted. You can't put peat under roads, and you can't move peat to sites for other applications. So the peat in this application can't be moved to the neighbouring application that we discussed at our last meeting. So I think it's really important that we include in our objections to this proposal a statement that the peat on site has to be dealt with within planning policy, both nationally and Cheshire East Council.
Thank you. That's very succinctly put. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Jackson? No? No? Okay, I think you've said it all there. And there is this other item, the application does not clearly meet the local planning policy requirements and so on. Does anybody wish to speak to that, or shall we move on? Yes, thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I think that we've covered this point partly, but the point I want to make now is about affordable homes. There's a provision for 30% affordable homes in this application, and it should be 40%, and that's another reason to object to the application. It does not meet criteria for affordable homes laid down in our planning policy, in Cheshire East planning policy.
Quite right too, yeah. Thank you. I know this is off the point probably, but I was looking at all three planning applications, and I noticed that the 232 houses, is it, south of Chelford Road, didn't have any affordable housing, did it? Am I wrong about that? Does anybody know about that sort of thing? Is that your hand up there, Councillor Roberts? Right, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Jackson, thank you.
I'll just make a point that this happens so often that developers initially might want or at least support affordable housing, but then when they actually look into developing the site and they see all the challenges that they're facing, what's the first thing to cut to try and make it viable in their view? And it is the affordable housing. And so they produce a study on the viability, and it's always the affordable housing, or generally the affordable housing, that gets cut. And that's what it happens on many developments, and it certainly happened on these developments up and around Broughton Cross.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any other speakers on that? Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Roberts, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think just to reiterate Councillor Jackson's comments, that most developers throw this social housing in as a way of justifying the whole development, really, and it's just a bit of a sideline. And then, as you say, you get down to the nitty gritty and find that they can't afford it. Not that they want it in the first place anyway. And as we've seen on the King's development, that's gone from 30% down to 5%. And they're struggling at 5%, and it's happening all over. So it doesn't surprise me that there's none on the side that you quoted. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Right, thank you. Councillor Wilson, you had a couple of other points which weren't on those agenda items. Thank you. Please.
Yes, I have been able to make those points as we've gone through our discussion. Thank you, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you
So
very
if it will be helpful, I'm happy now to formally move the list of objections that we've just been through in great detail.
Thank you. I have a proposer. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Is everything clear, Pete, about what we're asking? The proposal?
Yes, Chair, and just nod from the civic officer that the objections have been noted. Yep. Yeah, we're clear, Chair.
Yeah, should we take a vote on it, please?
All those in favour of the objection? Okay, Chair, we've got that. Yeah.
Thank you.
We might have to, I'm just going to ask to see if Councillor Harewood can indicate any view, if she can hear us.
No?
No.
Well, we're only partway through the agenda. I suggest that we have a couple of minutes comfort break and then come back to the other items on the agenda. Can we
So
just stop it for a second?
You're adjourning the meeting.
Please.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to the planning meeting on the 22nd of May. We've got a number of applications before us. All the members here have seen the papers and have read them and so on. And I'm going to read them out very, very quickly. There is one that we wish to discuss in greater detail. But first of all, application 20/1720M. We have no objection to it. Councillor Jackson, I beg your pardon. Yes, please go ahead, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Yes. Well, this is on Central Ward, and I have looked at it, and it is in a conservation area. I have no objection, and the conservation officer has no objection, subject to a condition. So I'm quite happy to support this application.
Good, thank you. 20/1580D. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you. I support this application. Just a couple of very quick comments. This is a discharge of conditions 5, which relates to a flooding risk, and 8, which relates to the materials to be used in the car parking. We've gone through the application in detail, and the level of the apartment have been raised to a level above any potential risk of flooding, and the car park proposals are to be in keeping with the car parking laid down at the neighbouring Albion Mews. So I think that we can support this application.
Thank you. I take it, Pete, we don't have to vote on this or anything. We just have no objection, yeah?
If there are no objections, no need to vote. It's carried as no objection.
20/1683M. Any comments? No. No. Application 20/1823M. Any objections? Any comments? No. Application 20/1837M. Any comments? Objections? No. Application 20/1885M. Any objections? Comments? No. Application 20/1901M. Any comments or objections? No. Right. Application 20/1123M. Could I ask perhaps the civic officer if she could call up the graphics at all if required? Councillor Jackson, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, this again is an application on Central Ward, and converting, changing office to residential. In principle, I don't have an issue with that. It's very close to the town centre, and it's a good position. And one or two other properties on that street have been change of use. This one it does state within the application that it is for a 3-bed residential unit at number 5 Presbury Road. But when I looked at the plans, and when I looked at the location plan, which always, the site is always indicated by a red line. The red line just runs around number 5. It doesn't include number 3. Yet that's the location plan. When you look at the proposed floor plans, the floor plans show number 3 as well. So and that's another 3-bed unit. So in fact, we're looking here at 2 residential units, of 3-bed, yet the outline red line only covers number 5, not number 3. So it's very confusing. There's also a discrepancy then on the parking numbers. And I just have a concern about it, and I won't be able to support this. My advice to Cheshire East and to the applicant is that they really need to resubmit some different plans. They need to assess the plans, amend them, and come back. I can't support it as it stands because it is quite confusing.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Do I have any other speakers, please? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very confused by this application as well as Councillor Jackson. The application is registered at 5 Presbury Road, yet from the plans it's obvious that it includes number 3. And number 3 and 5 are the same doorway at present, but on the proposed plans it's going to be 2 doorways, 2 separate doorways. So that, and if you look at the elevations, at least 50% of the work is going on in number 3. So I'm very confused as to which property or is being applied for. There's no information. I'm assuming they've got to get a change of use from office to B1 to C3, or possibly, I don't know, C4 HMO. We expect very vague at the minute, and I can't support this application until we get more clarity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any Councillor Wilson, anything? No. Pete, is it possible for us to defer this to the next meeting for asking for more clarity on the plans?
Chair, we don't have that power as we're a consultee and not the planning authority. What the committee might be minded to do is to object to the application in its current form and seek that, if it were to be considered, it's resubmitted with more clarity.
Right. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Can we take a vote on that, please?
That's all those in favour. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to ask, just in case, A-Lift, Councillor Harewood, can you hear us? Do you have an indication of view? Afraid not.
Right, moving on. 20/1974M. Any comments or objections to that? No, no objection then. Item 6, Conservation Area Review. Who wishes to speak on that, please? This is the action to note any updates. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak on this?
I think we've had a report from the civic officer on this. I'm happy to go through that report if that would be helpful. Maybe Harriet would wish to cover that. The civic officer would wish to cover that.
Thank you. Harriet, do you have any comments on this?
I'm quite happy for Councillor Wilson to speak unless you want me to go through.
Whichever you want. Yeah, Councillor Wilson?
Yes, you'll. Thank you very much. I just didn't want to cut across the work that's been done to assist us with this by the civic officer. You'll recall with the Conservation Area Review that full council in December agreed that we would deliver a Conservation Area Review ourselves. We would seek funding support from Cheshire East Council, and we were to meet on the 3rd of April with Cheshire East Council officers and the planning committee for us to discuss how we take this forward. That meeting didn't take place because of the COVID-19 restrictions, So we're now in a situation where we have been advised that from the Cheshire East Council Planning Department that there's no budget resource to undertake the review, and that but the Cheshire East Council are willing to support in finding an appropriate consultant, etc. They are saying that it would probably be a review period of about 6 months for the review, 6 months for consultation and adoption, and they've confirmed that the 30,000 budget we have agreed to set aside would be about right. And so if we do decide to proceed with the review, which we have already done, Cheshire East Council would give some priorities to supporting the process. So I think that's really a very positive development. We have already agreed at full council we want to go ahead with the conservation area review. We've now clarified the position about funding, but we did agree we would pay for the review if Cheshire East Council were not able to. And so I therefore suggest that we continue to pursue a meeting with Cheshire East, either online if that becomes possible, as we've been able to do ourselves with our planning committee meeting, or at the earliest possible opportunity to have a meeting in person, socially distanced if that's necessary, so we can get on with implementing the decision that full council's taken on this important issue.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I take it we just note this. We don't have to vote on it, do we, Pete? We do? No.
That's correct, Chair. It's just for noting.
Right. Well, this is duly noted. Thank you very much. Item 7, town character assessment. We're asked to note any updates. Councillor Wilson again, please.
Yes, we are waiting for a response on this on a couple of issues. So I think we just need to pursue with Cheshire East Council the issues that we wanted to raise with them about how this fits in with planning generally, to confirm how that would fit in with planning policies locally. And I think we should wait for that clarification to come. Well, we haven't got any choice. We will wait for that clarification to come.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers on that? This is the town character assessment. Councillor Jackson, anything? No? Councillor Roberts? No. Councillor Harewood? No. Okay, well, we'll duly note that then and move on. Thank you. Number 8, planning administration. To consider the report on planning administration. Who would like to lead on this? Are we going to simply accept it, or yes, thank you. Pete, yeah.
Chair, this is to seek consideration associated with adopting a new piece of software that allows us to better administer the planning committee. It allows us to have more detail and keep a history more readily available to us of all the applications we get and how we respond to them. It allows it to refer appropriate to policy and keeps a record of all communication. It's the committee is becoming more and more involved in the planning process, which is positive. The committee is becoming more and more busier and busier. So it seems like a reasonable position to find a software that suits that. This is sector specific. Equally, it comes with 5 licenses. In this current situation of remote working and mobile working, it would be impractical to have it operating on 1 license on 1 computer because we can't guarantee access to that computer. So therefore 5 licenses is a small increase in cost, but allows that resilience in working.
Thank you very much, Pete. Any speakers on that? Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak? No? Yes, Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to move this proposal, the recommendation that we purchase the Rialtas planning administration software, and second, that the accounting tool, asset register and planning software are hosted remotely. And we'll need to share that decision with the Services and Finance Committee, as the usage of this software is going to be across the whole of the council function. But I think this is an excellent idea. As a planning committee, we're focusing very much on our statutory consulting role and looking at all the applications that come through and commenting as appropriate. I think that this is future-proofing to give us the access we need for a whole range of services to support our council work and our staff in their activities. And I think with the COVID-19 situation, because purchasing sufficient licenses to enable us to have access for all of our staff. First of all, that's of a benefit that everyone has access, and second of all, we don't know how long people are going to be working remotely. It's difficult to judge. It could be could be some time. So I'm very happy to move the recommendations that I've just covered.
Good. Sorry, Councillor Jackson, please.
Yes, so I'll second that proposal. I think
Yeah.
it's excellent, and as has been said, it's future-proofing us really, and gives that flexibility also for any working from home or the video conferencing that we're doing. We're having to be quite flexible on the way we work, and I think this might be an indication of future working. So I think everything we can do to make sure we're perfectly capable and able to react to whatever we need to do. So I think it's a great
Thank you.
step forward.
Any other speakers? Right, we have a proposer by Councillor Wilson and a seconder, Councillor Jackson. Shall we take a vote on it, please?
All those in favour? Thank you. Any indication, Ailift? We'll take that as carried by majority.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, item 9, is there any correspondence, please, Pete? No, Harriet, no. Item 10, members' items. Any member items?
None submitted, Chair.
Thank you very much. Number 11, time and place of, well, we know where the place is going to be. Time and place of the next meeting.
12th of June,
12th of June, thank you very
10
much.
a.m.
Okay, right, I would like to call this meeting to an end, if I may. Thank you very much for attending, everyone, and I hope that those on YouTube have found our meeting illuminating. Thank you very much. Goodbye.